Charles Gagnon, right? Turns out he's getting paid now.
Yeah, that's right. That's what the Zoran folks said they were gonna contribute.
Sponsorship. So everything comes full circle, right? That means if I'm not mistaken, I know it was a fork of a fork. Zoran OS had forked dash to dock to create dash to panel, and then
Right.
it was forked. It was then given to Charles Gagnon, who was then the subject of a topic an episode ago about we should, pay
be nicer.
people and not be so hard on them and just be nice in general, right? After all of that controversy, we pulled Charles Gagnon back. He has now graciously accepted a sponsorship from Zoran OS to continue development and maintainership on dash to panel,
which is amazing.
That's great.
That's really is great. It's the best outcome that could possibly happen. I feel like, even though
from the starting point that we were at,
we took a bit of a circuitous route to get there.
Yeah,
but the outcome is actually pretty good.
That's all I ask for,
and so
other
hopefully
than being nice in the first place. But
so hopefully that's what's happening now. I'm excited. Yeah, it's good.
Me too.
Coming up in this episode, vibe coding coming to a plasma near you. We need another standard. And the newest of the new. Hello and welcome to Linux User Space. I'm Dan.
And I'm Leo. So, you've heard about this new trend, vibe coding, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so using AI to do the coding for you. I think most of the time that doesn't work out the way that everybody expects it to, but it actually does kind of work out sometimes. And as far as I can tell, not a single person that I talk to in any of the communities that I'm in are really excited about AI and what it can and maybe can't do in software development. But that's not stopping the Qt project from throwing a little bit of it in there.
I personally hear you, and I feel like, obviously we both have education ties, and so that's not a great necessarily thing for the learners to be, at least initially be standing on the crutch of AI coding for you.
I mean, it's like AI is kind of like wearing the little floaty things when you're learning to swim, right? You can't learn to swim for real unless you take the floaties off and swim for real.
Right. And I think there's time and place for everything, and this might actually be a little too far for me. I mean, that's where I'm at.
Okay, well, one of the things that the Qt project has implemented in their IDE is AI-generated inline comments.
All right, so you got me there. I mean, I think that's actually a really good use case. So this is the good. We're hitting on the good first.
This is where AI is going to ingest, because I hesitate to say the word understand. It's going to ingest a block of code and tell you what that code is doing.
Or at least line by line commenting on it, right?
Right. And so this is going to save developers time by not having to write their own comments. That's a great thing, right? Like,
that's a pretty mundane task, and obviously you can look at what the code is doing and hopefully, in small blocks, figure out what the comments should more or less be. You can obviously salt it up a little bit with your own flavor, but it gets the ball rolling on a very menial task, if you will. Something that's very repetitive. You're going to repeat yourself a lot with that. So having the machine crank that out for you, that makes sense. And ultimately, it doesn't impact any of the code there because it's a comment.
Right. And that's kind of the goal with all of the AI stuff, right? Is to make your life easier by doing the stuff that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
And
the repetitive things.
Yeah. And if you look at the state of a lot of the projects out there on GitHub, it is quite obvious that ain't nobody like to write comments about it.
Or documentation or code or any of that, right? Yeah. No, none of that's happening, really.
Yeah, unless they are negative comments inside of an issue that they've opened about whether or not you should pay your developers or something like that, right?
Yeah, and I suppose it could comment something incorrectly, but ultimately, like I said, it doesn't impact how the code runs.
Right. Okay. So as long as we're hands off the code, okay. All right.
I'm good with that. That's where I'm at.
What if we're kind of in the middle? So another thing that we're implementing in the Qt IDE is Google test creation. So while we are allowing AI to write the code, we're not allowing AI to write the code that's actually going to be run. We're asking AI to write code to test the code that will ultimately be run. So what do you think about that then?
I'm a little skeptical here because hear me out. I mean, how do you test the test? How do you know that the test is doing the right test against your thing?
Well, of course, anybody that would be writing or using AI to create these Google test creation things to actually test their code is obviously going through line by line to make sure that every single one of those tests is doing exactly what they expect it to do, and then the output of the test is also scrutinized very heavily.
100% not.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no. Nobody's going to do that. I mean,
it's like one of those comment things, right? Like, I definitely don't want to do that, so, no.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I feel like, okay, maybe get you started on it, I suppose. But I mean, ultimately, I feel like only you know what you need to test here. So you kind of should be writing your own test suite, I feel like.
Well, I would suppose that you can kind of point the AI in a, well, I want you to create this kind of test, right? So, I mean, you know, it shouldn't, you shouldn't be just saying, test it all. Good luck.
Well, right? I mean, I don't know if you watch the example on the blog there, it kind of looks like they just highlighted a whole bunch of code and said, you know, make me a test.
Oh.
Using the Google test suite, whatever that is, I don't even know what that does. So
yeah, it kind of blows a hole in my whole theory there. So
a little bit. I mean, I guess, but maybe it's great. Maybe it does the thing correctly, but I just have great reservation.
Well, Google has the all-seeing eye. I'm sure they've ingested all of GitHub, GitLab, and every other Git repository that could ever exist in all of everywhere.
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, using all of those tests that have already been pre-written, then it would then create good code to test already new code, right? That's
yeah.
I mean, we've allowed Google to do this. Surely that means that the AI that they have trained can generate good tests. Surely.
Yeah, I don't know that we allowed Google to do anything, but
well, we haven't stopped them.
They did it.
So
we didn't stop them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there were plenty of people screaming, but there wasn't really any action by the entities, not the people that were screaming. The entities that could take action took no action. So de facto, we allowed them to do it. So, okay. All right, that's kind of in the middle.
So I got some skepticism there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all right. Well, how about text streaming? Okay, so hold on. A little background on this. The example that they have on the Qt developer blog is basically taking a block of code that that you have defined some stuff and then you've set some values. They have colors specifically in
as
that
the
one,
example.
Right? So yeah, so like, you know, you can kind of imagine like some kind of desktop application or whatever, and you're like, you know, I want the whole thing to be blue. And instead of going in there manually changing it to, after you've changed your mind, oh, I want it to all be red, you highlight the code block and say, you know what, all these colors, change them to red. And then the AI assistant will pump out the code that would be used to do that. And then you're meant to copy and pasta it straight back on top of the old code block so that the changes are now implemented. So we've seen an incremental step from writing comments about a block of code to testing written code by a human using AI tests to actually letting AI put its little tendrils all over your code. So you see the whole entire gradient of AI's writing code now. Now, while at least in these examples, it's not writing the whole code.
Yeah.
Does the gradient continue?
Boy, I hope not. I mean, I feel like that might even be a little too far for me. I mean, I'd like to think that you know how to do that sort of thing. Like, at least before we go leaning on the AI stuff real hard.
Right.
I just, you made the analogy, is AI the new calculator of the modern age?
Right, because I've heard that particular comparison quite often, and it's really hard to come up with a good argument as to why it isn't. Because the only thing I can come up with is the same exact thing that people against the calculator came up with. Maybe I'm just not smart enough to see the distinction there.
I'm just worried, right? Like, I'm worried here. I learned how to do longhand division and did that a lot before,
me too.
Before someone tossed a calculator my direction. And would I use the calculator now? Yeah, perhaps, but I still know how to do it if I had to. Most of the time in my head, but like if it's really complicated, then yeah, okay, maybe I need to write it all out. And I don't know. I hope we aren't losing those concepts. I hope we aren't just, tossing the calculators at the first graders and saying, go nuts. You don't have to learn how to.
Maybe in the future, but at least the current crop they're still doing it longhand.
Right. But to add on to that, I hope, people don't see, like, I want to do a career change and, AI will just write the code for me. I don't have to learn it. And, no, it doesn't work that way, folks. It's an assistant at best. And it can help guide you, maybe get you unstuck, that sort of thing. But it shouldn't be a replacement. Yeah, copy pasta has gone too far.
Yeah, so vibe coding, the idea that AI is going to write all your code for you is not really set in reality for you. Is not really a thing. You can't do that.
I hope not for a while. It needs to get way better than it is.
So would you liken highlighting a block of code and letting the AI change a lot of the values, if not add new values? Would that be vibe coding, or are we just getting real close to it?
We're getting real close to it. I think we're right on the edge, if not over it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
If you could highlight a block of code and it can kind of give you some explanation of what's going on, I guess that's more of an education tool. And at that point, it's teaching you something. Yeah. Hopefully correctly.
Maybe. You hope so.
But I mean, I wouldn't feel as bad about that because like it's helping your education so that you can do it yourself. I don't want it doing it for me. I just don't. I think it's just a really hard thing to resist, right? It's very much you get trapped into it. Like I feel like it grabs a hold of you.
Right. And I mean, it's like someone without any artistic ability themselves still being able to go in and write a prompt to Midjourney and still get stuff out that is quite good, depending on who you are, what you're looking for, if that hits the nail on the head or not.
Six fingers are okay. It's fine.
Yeah, well, you're right. You just cut the hands off. Just crop it, and then no one will know. Call of Duty. No one will know that the Santa has the Santa zombie has 6 fingers.
I mean, he's a zombie. That's kind of fun.
Right? Yeah, he just sprouted one when he turned. But it's the same kind of idea, right? It's just enticing to be able to say that, like, I want a recipe app, or I want a cooking app, or I want a whatever app, and it's it's wishful thinking that you can just go to AI and be like, make me that app. Here's all the things. Here's a bunch of bullet points of what I want. and then it be able to spit you out an APK or publish directly to the Apple Store or Apple app, whatever thing, and be able to hit the install button. I think that's what a lot of people are looking for. I think that's what when people hear about what AI can do, I think that's kind of immediately where you go. If you're looking for software, that's where your mind goes with that kind of thing.
It's a lot like this. You watch, those 42-minute TV shows, and they always solve everything within the show. Yeah. That's not actually reality, folks. I mean, AI isn't the shortcut. It's the TV episode. It's not necessarily a replacement for the real thing. That's all. That's the way I look at it.
That's pretty good. So, okay. So if the Qt folks are integrating all of this AI stuff into their IDE, does that then mean that the Qt folks are also using this to develop a lot of the underlying Qt framework? I keep saying Qt, but it's Qt, right? Isn't that right?
Qt, yeah.
But
Qt,
they're
Qt. They're both acceptable, I would imagine.
But would that then mean that they're using this for the underlying Qt framework?
They implemented it into their IDE, so I mean, yeah, someone's using it. Whether they're all using it, or a few are using it, or none are using it, I don't know the answer to that.
I would suspect that it's not none, and then kind of hedging with that bet. Does that also mean that some of this AI generated code is going to end up in and around Plasma and the KDE framework and a lot of the applications that are developed for it?
Well, some of the underlying Qt libraries would probably definitely contain that then, if that's the way they're going. So I guess by proxy, they would be.
So where does that put us?
Does that taint your view of Plasma now?
Right. And I don't know that I don't know how the Plasma folks feel about this, right? Like, and I don't even know that this is actually going to be reality, right? But it sure seems like
it's probably getting used some. Like I said, I feel like the inline comment thing, that's probably pretty powerful for a lot of people to be able to have that stuff, just to kind of know what's going on.
Yeah. An interesting thought.
I don't know. Hopefully it's not going too far.
Well, I don't know. It's hard to think that everybody involved with every one of these projects is just absolutely against AI all the way down. So
yeah,
it's just going to be an inevitability, it seems like, that there's going to be at least a modest amount of AI-generated code in everything. In everything.
Yeah, probably true. And I just hope we take the cautious approach and implement things in a slow nature so that we know what we're getting into. Things are tested well, working well, and you don't end up with glue on your pizza.
Well, I mean, obviously the Google tests that are generated by AI are tested also. It's going to be tested well,
that'll be
obviously.
Yeah, it's still a pizza with glue.
Yeah,
it's just not tasty.
Uh-huh. Well, I'm going to cross my fingers.
Hopefully we don't go to that.
Yeah, so if you haven't smashed that like button, I don't even like saying it. But if you haven't actually clicked or tapped on the like, subscribe, bell, all that stuff, do that. Because,
here somewhere.
Yeah, because I like you too. So yeah, don't forget all of our stuff ends up out on YouTube. The full episodes as they release in podcast form as well. And I mean, if you only see us on YouTube, yeah, there's actually an audio only podcast. You can go to linuxuserspace.show to get the information on that. It's just a regular old RSS feed. So if you're allergic to YouTube or whatever, and you're not listening to us on an RSS feed, you can do that. There is a raw feed, so you can grab that from the site. But also, which we're recording this on a Wednesday, which means that tomorrow morning, the history episode that we did in the previous episode is going to be dropping out there on YouTube, of course, but also on the edutainment platform of the internet, Tilvids. So if you are, again, allergic to YouTube, you can subscribe to us over on Tilvids, get all of the edutainment, all of the educational, all of the history, all of that kind of thing over there, and just kind of enjoy the Federated-verse with us. Yeah, but that also means we're all over the Fediverse, right? So not just with the Tilvids account. We got the old Mastodon, we got Lemmy, and all that other kind of federated nonsense. So yeah, if you haven't followed us along on one of those places, you can do that, get all the updates and all of the goings on as well. But if you like us just a little bit more than wanting to click a subscribe button, over on patreon.com/LinuxUserSpace, you can send us $1 or more and get more than just the announcements. $1 gets you like a Lemmy username with our linuxuserspace.show @ handle on it. $3 will get you the show before the show drops. $5 will get you the show before the show in audio form, and $10 will get you the show before the show in video form, but also you can sit in here while we're doing all of this stuff and just kind of hang out, add your comments, let us know what you think as we're doing it, and
right
hopefully
here in
the
the
little
studio.
breaks. Yeah, in the little breaks that we have between segments, we'll see if we can't have a little banter back and forth.
Yeah, definitely.
So shoot us $1 over at Patreon. And subscribe to us all over the place.
Yeah, we appreciate your support, no matter how you give it to us.
So speaking of memory safety, in the previous segment we were talking about Google writing AI test suites to test our code. But why would you want to test your code? Well, it turns out writing in C and C++ give you just enough tooling, but hide just enough of the inner workings of the hardware to allow you to create very memory unsafe things. If you ever heard buffer overflow, buffer underflow, any kind of memory safety, any kind of flaw in any kind of software, that's exactly the kind of thing, exactly the kind of tooling that you get with a C and a C++. And the kernel written mostly in
quite a lot
C. And one of the most popular types of flaws that come out over on MITRE and all of the CVE websites is, you guessed it, memory insecurity. So what do you do about that?
I don't know. There's a call to fix it, and the computer programmer types, they got a plan.
Yeah, and well, we've heard a lot of rabble about Rust.
Yeah, Rust is a good example of memory safe because of the way it gets compiled, right?
Yeah, and little do some folks know Python. Python is actually memory safe. You're far enough away from the hardware that you can't accidentally point to not your memory and accidentally overwrite it.
Yeah, Python's got its other woes. It's not necessarily the most performant, but it is memory safe.
That's true. You can go a long ways to making it more performant, but
you can help it, but it's not the best.
Yeah, it ain't gonna be C performant.
Right.
But that's one of the things that we've heard a whole heck of a lot about. And we talked about a couple episodes ago, Rust developers having a really, really, really difficult time getting their code upstreamed into the Linux kernel. And luckily, in my opinion, a little too late, but still, I'll take what I can get. Both Greg KH came out and said, we're hackers. This is what we do. We make it work. And then Linus a little later came out and said similar things, right? Like if Rust it seems to be the right way to go, then that is just going to be the right way to go, and that's the way we're going to go. Yeah, so it looks like Rust has made its way in, has gotten the green flag, and we're going to see more and more of it, and that's good.
Yeah, it's not going to replace everything. No, definitely not. But it's got its place for things, especially in user space. To implement some of those drivers and whatnot that that they're writing the Rust stuff in.
One thing that is just going to make that additionally inevitable is that the paper that we've been kind of alluding to this entire time is a paper from Association for Computing Machinery entitled "It is Time to Standardize Principles and Practices for Software Memory Safety." So there are about 21 authors on this thing, and it's an actual list. I am pretty impressed with the names that show up on here. You've got folks from Microsoft, you've got folks from Google, you got folks from ARM, you've got plenty of academics on here.
Yep.
So it seems like there's a lot of heavyweight behind the push.
It's a who's who in the in the programming space, kind of.
Right. I mean, because you have you've got some big names making this push to get memory safe languages being kind of the de facto way that we're looking. Convert what you can now, write new code in this kind of thing. And I suppose the ultimate goal here is going to really just be while we can't do it right now, is going to be a sea change in all of the, in everything that we use, just kind of running into being written in memory safe languages. And these companies have a huge vested interest in making sure that the Linux kernel is also memory safe, right? So just because we say Microsoft doesn't mean that they don't have a huge interest in the Linux kernel, because they have WSL. They run Linux inside of Windows for development, right? Both people inside and outside of Microsoft are doing this kind of thing.
They use Linux for other tools too, but I mean, they aren't necessarily desktop operating systems, although they have one of those too.
Right.
So I mean, they definitely have an interest in this. But I will say, some of these cross-platform languages like C++, and Rust is one of them. Rust is also cross-platform. So, even in Windows and Mac OS, you'll see some of these other languages come up too.
Right.
So they have an interest from that standpoint as well.
Right. And I mean, Azure, I forget what the percentage is now, and it's kind of ever fluctuating, but Microsoft Azure ends up running something to the effect of more than 50% of everything they run in the cloud is Linux and not Microsoft-based. So there's a huge interest there. And then for Google, there's all of their Chromebooks, all of their Android devices, all of their Chromecasts, and everything. All the stuff that they have lives on top of a Linux kernel, and it behooves them to make sure that we're not getting hit by this low-hanging, memory. I picked out memory from over here that's really not mine, but I took it anyway so I can read these types of things. Or I accidentally overwrote memory over here, so this other application is now crashed because the memory is unreadable. They have a vested interest in not seeing those kinds of flaws show up so that their stuff doesn't look bad.
Right.
And ARM, you're seeing all of this stuff, all of these ARM-based whatevers. You're seeing tons of Linux stuff pop up on these things. So there's a huge interest all across the industry to actually bring this stuff to fruition. So memory safety is paramount now. So,
well, I'll tell you, one of the incidents somewhat recently, about a year ago now almost, is the CrowdStrike incident, where everybody's, woke up to a blue screen. Because that's not that, like, they should have tested it. That was a flaw in the implementation, but the language that those drivers were written in was C++. And so it might not have happened if we'd have taken care of the language problem in addition to the testing and implementation. But I mean, so there's a prime example of something that's low level and needs to be kind of redone in a different way.
Right. I don't know how many times on the Ubuntu Security Podcast I've heard heap buffer overflow or something like that. It is it's insane.
Yep.
It is the vast majority of the flaws that we see on a day-to-day, which is really funny. But the CrowdStrike thing is funny too, because I don't think the main problem was memory insecurity. You mentioned it. I mean, the main problem was testing.
Yeah, they
to see if things explode when you apply this particular patch.
Right.
And I mean, I remember this. I mean, airports were scrambling. I mean, anybody that had BitLocker was going through it because you had to go in and before Microsoft and CrowdStrike. Yeah, before Microsoft and CrowdStrike came up with a kind of a middle solution, you had to go and manually type in codes to roll things back and fix things up. But yeah, and it was ultimately because you didn't test, but deep down, the actual problem itself wouldn't have happened. Wouldn't have happened had you written it in a memory safe language. You just wouldn't have seen that type of flaw. Now, but again,
it's because it had that low level access right to the kernel, and it wasn't written in a way that was. I mean, because if it was actually in user space, your program would have just crashed. It wouldn't have crashed the whole operating system, right? But I think these things really tight to the kernel need to be better.
Right. Safer. And their argument, CrowdStrike's argument, and they're not wrong, is that you just really can't do this kind of thing you can't have this type of protection in user space. You just don't have the low level access for that.
Yeah. But I agree it's implemented in the right ring, if you will. It just
ring 0.
Yeah. It just needed to be safer so that it didn't crash your whole system.
It just needed to be tested.
Well, that's yep.
Yeah. So, but that's kind of the idea, right? So this paper is just more about more than about using memory safe languages. It's a broader conversation about being, what the future is going to look like, because we've got timelines out to 2038, how things are going to be shaping up, but. It just feels very relevant because of the recent thing that happened with the Linux kernel and how much of a conversation there was about not allowing Rust be adjacent to the kernel. Now it just seems like
it's the right choice.
Yeah, with the amount of pull that the big names that are showing up on papers like these have, and the amount of code that they're going to be upstreaming. It just seems like whether or not Greg KH and Linus gave it the stamp of approval, it's going to move this way anyway. Linus and Greg's hand was going to be forced.
Yeah, the big names are going to push it.
Yeah, so 2018 to 2027, you're looking at setting industry best practices. Security critical applications are going to be written in memory safe technologies. From 2028 to 2037. You're going to be looking at non-critical devices and then swapping them over to more memory-safe languages, looking at legacy systems and seeing what it's going to take to move them. And then at the end of that kind of thing, from 2038 to 2047, the real idea there is universal adoption of memory-safe languages. So
that's really far out. So, I mean, that gives you plenty of time to pivot.
Right, and plenty of time to come up with that new standard. The standard that's going to replace all of the old standards forever, right? I mean, surely that's what this paper is pointing at.
So it's XKCD
927. If you need to know, if you need to know which one, I'll have it on the screen here. But 927.
We'll have a
look
link
at that one.
to it as well.
So
we need another standard. I got it. Yep.
Right. And I suppose most everybody listening to this now may have actually already seen that one, but it's worth it. Go click on the link. He deserves your traffic. But yeah, so they've identified that that's not going to be how this is. There's a line
No,
in
I
here that under the heading of potential structures for one or more standards or documents, right? It already kind of alludes to the fact that there's going to be more than one. This is not going to be, they're not going to sit here and try to define for you what memory safe language to be using. They have
Right.
multiple in here. And they go on to say, it would be premature to try to fix the best structure for the results of this effort. And that really is the XKCD 927 is really a distillation of this particular sentence. Because you can't force it. You can try. But then you're going to have 18 competing standards to try and just look at Linux. Linux is just a competing standard, isn't it? And then everything underneath that is also still a competing standard.
I know. Yeah, absolutely. So I
isn't
don't know. I think it's exciting stuff, and I'm glad it's been put out there. You know, with the idea of adoption, and it has a good roadmap, and hopefully people can follow the roadmap.
Yeah. It's gonna work out for everybody except for the people that absolutely refuse to write in anything but C and C++.
Yeah,
right?
but I mean, everything changes. Like it can't stay the same forever. That's just not how computing works.
Well, yeah, those folks retire.
Well, yeah, they will. I mean, it's going to happen. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Right,
So.
and I really do think that moving this way is absolutely inevitable. So. We'll be there, and it will be a good thing, and we'll live in a Linux utopia where you will never have to hear the word buffer overflow ever again. So catch these and other great topics as they unfold on Lemmy, our subreddit, or the news channel on Discord. All of the things that we're talking about now are or will soon be posted to one of those three, all of those, not just one, all of those 3 places. So yeah, if you're keeping up with those kinds of things, then you already know what's coming out on the next topic show. But what you don't know is the way that we're going to land on how we feel about these kinds of things. So if you want to know that kind of thing before the showtime actually happens, then it's time to go and comment and talk a little bit about and have a little bit of a conversation about some of these things, and then you'll get your kind of finger on the pulse of what's going to happen in old Linux user space 5, whatever. Oh well, I shouldn't say 5 whatever because there will be a next season.
There'll be some 6s eventually, hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah, and then if you go back and watch this one, then I will be wrong, and you'll be like, 5? What? It's episode 805. What are you talking about?
Oh, that'd be cool.
Well, it's on the horizon. I don't plan on quitting, so
it's in the roadmap.
With enough time, we'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But outside of those 3 places, there's, of course, all the federated places. So Mastodon, we technically have a Pixel Fed. We just don't
post
use
anything
it
there, but yeah.
I plan on using it to post the more imagey, like video-y stuff, but I also want to be respectful of other people's servers, right? Because I don't own that storage space, and it's not some venture capital company that owns that, where I don't care how much space. I want to give you as much data as I possibly can just to waste your money and time.
We want it to be worthy of post.
Exactly. So you can go find us there. You can find us on Lemmy, as we mentioned. But we're also out on Matrix.
We are.
Another, not the same, but similarly federated. And we do our live streams when we do those over on Twitch. And I know there's some places that I'm missing. TikTok.
Blue Sky?
We're out over there. Oh, that's right. The Blue Sky. We've got one of thems. All of the stuff that comes out always ends up on Mastodon and Blue Sky, though. So our short form messages will always end up there. I'm trying to get them on Patreon. I don't know why. I'll make an announcement in places like that, and then I'll forget to do it on Patreon, like where it's supposed to be, like where.
Yeah.
where
and there's a free tier to Patreon too, by the way.
Yes. So if you're not a fan of social media or anything like that, and you just happen to want to follow that kind of stuff, I promise I'll get better at posting it there.
It's a place to follow along. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, there's so they've enabled podcast feeding and stuff.
Yep.
So if you don't, I don't know why you would be in this situation, but if you just happen to be in this situation, like you're still clicking on the play button like a caveman on the Patreon website for the actual show that releases with the rest of the stuff. There's an actual Patreon podcast feed now that you can subscribe to. I've got it titled. Well, actually, the title is different. The title's always different. Over on Patreon, because I usually set that stuff out before Dan and I have.
We haven't even thought about a title yet.
Because
Probably.
we're that forward thinking, right? The amount of forward thinking in this previous topic out to 2047, we're the exact opposite of that, where we've got like we might have 4 titles sloshing around and we're just like, I can't choose, and then Dan's like, I can't choose, and so we spin the wheel.
Sometimes, yeah, and that's usually like December 31st, 2046.
Yeah, like the night before the report is due, it's like, oh God.
Yeah, that's kind of true.
It happened today. I don't know. I mean, it's the way we roll. So
it is.
Everything we're talking about is very fresh on the mind because of that. But yeah, so anyway, there's a lot of cool features on Patreon. So if that's for some reason the only place that you follow us, you can actually get the full entire experience just right there. It's all there. So I don't know if you've been keeping your finger on the pulse of all of these goings on, but 2 of the most popular distributions are coming up to a release. And I say that by the time you hear this,
well, one of them's already been released.
Yeah, the Fedora one is already out there, and the Ubuntu one is slated unless something happens.
Unless chaos happens, and it's there's some going on. I'm not saying there isn't. Should happen. It should happen Thursday.
So wait.
Today's Wednesday. That's
show stopping type.
Maybe.
Okay. All right. So Ubuntu is probably released by the time you hear the full episode. And if it's not, then it's definitely released if you're watching this as a single. But Ubuntu 25.04 is coming out, and Fedora 42 have already been released. And while we don't normally do the thing where it's like, oh, here's the new stuff that came out in these distributions, we're going to kind of do that.
A little bit.
Yeah, to lead into a larger conversation that I think is going to take us a little further in the show. So, Dan, you're closer to Ubuntu, so
a little bit.
You do have the answer to the finger on the pulse question was yes, because you're involved. So, what's going on in Ubuntu land this time around?
Well, other than the chaos that might not get it released.
Can you divulge the chaos? Is that a
well? There's some installer issues, right? And so that's one of the things that you got to have. You got to have that perfectly working when you spin the images, because there's not really a way to update that necessarily unless it's on the image, because it's the installer. So some things. The main Ubuntu installer is fine. That's not impacted. It's the folks that use Calamares, and it's just there's some things that aren't quite right. And they're working on it, so it'll. I believe it'll get fixed. I'm casting a little drama, and there shouldn't be probably.
Okay,
so let's put it that way.
Cool. So let me ask you a question then. Because I suppose being part of the release, you would know. Would Ubuntu proper release if one or more of the flavors have a showstopper?
If it doesn't impact the main flavor or any of the other flavors that use that installer, they could release before the other ones. They could.
Okay. So
that would be a really drastic situation, probably. So I think I've only seen releases delayed like once, twice, maybe.
And would this be for the flavors or for main Ubuntu?
Well, one of them was like all of everybody, and it was an issue that impacted everyone.
Right. Now that one I can totally see, because if it's going to impact main Ubuntu, then obviously they're not going to ship.
It was just an LTS point release, but there was some reversion things happening that just it got broke, and the only way to do it was to hammer it out and respin.
Okay. So, but if Calamares was busted,
yeah,
main Ubuntu would ship, and Lubuntu would wait until the Calamares fix happened.
It could go that way. That was discussed. I know.
So this is actually something that could happen.
Oh yeah, it could. I think that would be pretty drastic. They were looking at how to fix it best, and I think they came to a conclusion before we got on air. I don't know where we're at right now, but
okay. Well, right, because I've been consuming all of your attention, and you have not been helping triage. I get it.
Yeah, so I don't know where that's at, but I think they were getting close.
You heard it here. This is. See, having Dan having his finger on the Ubuntu pulse is really handy, because I have dumb questions like this all the time, and Dan gets to educate me every time.
Yeah. Yeah, ultimately, I think they were trying to fix something, and then that broke it entirely. And so I think if they didn't come to an actual fix, they were going to just go back to the one that had like a couple of blips.
Okay. So
like
they were going to
minimal. They were actually going to revert images, and if they didn't get it fixed, and
got it.
Basically, I think minimal install might be broken out of that. Potentially.
Interesting. Okay.
But that's not the end of the world, because you can still install. Right.
So. Exactly. So at least as far as main Ubuntu goes, their installer is okay, and there are a whole lot of improvements. There,
a ton of improvements. Yeah.
There was the one that caught my eye was the wording changes on like which disk you wanted to install. It's more clear when you're going to wipe your entire disk on accident. So for those of you that don't read any of that stuff and just next, then that's not going to impact you at all. You'll still wipe your disk.
True.
But for people that take a half a second, read that message, it's going to be a little more clear that you're about to do something really, really drastic. And same with resizing and all of that kind of stuff. So it'll be more clear, which is really, really good.
I was just going to say, with the installer, I think there's been some more translations that have happened too.
Ooh, good.
Because the more time that it's out there, the more translators can get in there and get some of those translation things done. So, and that's a pretty big deal. Yeah, because it gets installed in a lot of different languages.
Exactly. So notification grouping, I think this is kind of more of a GNOME thing, but this might be an Ubuntu specific implementation. So like instead of just having a massive stack, you take a more modern approach, like a lot of phones are doing, Android and iOS now. You'll have similar related messages will be stacked on top of each other, and then you can kind of expand that to see what's all been going on, which is great. I think obviously modernizing the desktop is a good thing, and getting it closer to what people are used to is always a good thing. Because then there's less kind of culture shock going from one device to another.
I think it's a better experience too.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that I've been playing a whole lot more with on my own devices is the digital well-being stuff, specifically screen time, which I have actually, I'm pretty proud of myself. I've whittled down some of my screen time on some of my devices.
Well, that's good.
And using that digital well-being stuff actually helps with that, right? Like being able to keep track of it will actually help you know whether or not if what you want to do is reduce screen time.
Listen, I already know I do too much of it, so probably should implement some of this in my life.
Yeah, we're still in the multi-hours, but it is less multi-hours. Like it is fewer hours than before. So, a win is a win. So it's good to see that this kind of thing is actually making it into some of the desktops too, because if you don't have like that fully immersed, everything is the same on every Mac that you use, then your screen time is skewed. You're missing devices.
Oh yeah.
And by having all your devices kind of keep track of this, then it's really easy to kind of have a really good view of what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, if you need to count them all. I mean, yeah, this one goes around with you everywhere, right?
Right.
And so you're always on it, but you got to count the one that you're sitting in front of as well.
Yeah, that's the one I'm focusing on right now. I don't count my game time as screen time, which is incorrect.
Yeah.
I probably should. That would probably also make me feel bad. But anyway, it's good to see that it's making it into Ubuntu, and then there's HDR support is not on by default, but there's a whole lot of HDR screens out there that are just not looking quite right. So the HDR support is now enableable.
Yeah.
I do wonder, I see a lot of people doing screen sharing on Windows and stuff like that on HDR screens, and all I see is like a washed out, terrible version of what they're looking at. So well, it's not perfect on the other platforms, but it's good to see that we're starting to make some progress on it.
Yeah.
On the others. So is there anything happening specific in Ubuntu land that's interesting?
I'll say the Qt stack has been upgraded a few times, and so that impacts Ubuntu and Kubuntu.
So that you did pull in some of the vibe coding business that.
Well, I don't know about that, but
maybe.
I mean, very very up to date there, which is cool, and it's got the latest LXQt version. Because the new one actually comes out in the end of the month, or before May. So we're just a little they're just a little behind our release, which is actually kind of a good thing because it gets you time to get it ready for the next release.
25
throughout the whole cycle. So the next LXQt will be in the next one, if you will. But I mean, right now we're on the latest that's been released.
Very cool.
And so that's going to be pretty great. Just some other, bug fix things. That we were working on our installer and installer prompt and stuff like that. I think there's a lot of focus on that, and unfortunately that broke. But I think we're okay for the most part.
Contingencies are in place. You are all right.
Yep. No Wayland this time.
But that is coming for LXQt, which is
it's available now.
Like,
so if you ran Arch and you had a Wayland compositor, you could do the Wayland thing. And actually, Fedora they kind of beat us to this. They have some sessions. I don't know how much testing has been done on it yet either. So I mean, it's probably not time to adopt that necessarily because there are some buggy things. Depending on which, Wayland compositor you pick.
Right.
It looks like we're going with Mir.
Interesting.
At least that's the front runner right now. And Fedora is kind of doing the same. So like Fedora came up with the Mirway spin.
Whoa.
So that's a Mir compositor, Wayland session sort of thingy. And I think that's their nod there too, is what they're going to pair with LXQt. They have some other sessions written too. So, LabWC, Wayfire. I think there's a few of them out there that are interchangeable. So whichever one you swap in should work. And so we just need to do some testing on that and actually get some sessions written and get that implemented.
I just like hearing that Mir is alive and well and is actually going to be implemented instead of thrown away in the into the dumpster of history.
There's been new releases of it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, no, so check it out. And like I said, there's a whole spin over in Fedora land that is just
that's pretty cool.
Mir. Little cooperation or cooperation or whatever.
Hey, I like
we're calling
it.
That.
I like it. But speaking of Fedora, they had their answer to everything release, Fedora 42, and I caught a couple of highlights. They're doing some installer stuff too, but first I wanted to talk about Cosmic. And this is a desktop that I've been waiting. Live streams ago, I installed it. We kind of tinkered around with it.
It's not quite totally released yet, but I mean, it's getting there. Yeah.
Yep. I did buy a device to make the next live stream where we do something like that less yellow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing, but now I have a better streaming device for that. So it's going to be really interesting to see when the full Cosmic release comes out, and both Pop! OS and Fedora hop on that. Really, just
I got some other news for that too, but go ahead.
Oh, and just kind of how well it performs, and whether or not it's going to convince me to drop the last vestiges of Cinnamon that I've got going on. I will stay on Cinnamon forever because it's familiar, it's stable, it's exactly what I expect. It works exactly the way that I need it to. So I'm not looking for an off ramp or anything like that. But
listen, we were just raving up Rust there a minute ago, and well, guess what? Cosmic's written in
all Rust. It's all Rust. It's all the same talking point too. We all just talk around the same exact one talking point.
Yeah, it seems like, right?
Yeah, we theme it up.
So my other mention on that is it looks like from the release announcement on the Manjaro Summit thing, which is their semi-immutable, they're calling it.
Yeah.
That is going to have a Cosmic spin too.
Oh, okay.
So
there's going to be plenty of ways to ingest.
Yeah.
Cool. Plenty of ways to ingest the Cosmic. So the new installer. And I got beef with this thing. I got beef with this whole idea.
I need to try it. I have not tried it. I'll be honest with you, because like I've got it installed. I haven't, and I did an update, and I'm on 42.
But you didn't experience.
I didn't experience the installer. No, sorry.
So
that's on my list.
I got beef with this, but we'll talk about it real quick. So the new installer is a more linear installer, where a lot like the Ubuntu, a lot like pretty much all the installers you're used to.
Every single one of them. Yep.
Right. And I think this switch to a new installer that is not Anaconda, that is not hub and spoke style, is bad.
Okay.
And the reason I think it's bad is, well, first of all, the old installer was fine. Everything that you needed to do was presented to you in a very, very easy to follow kind of way.
You think so?
I think the reason that everybody disliked it is because of all of the Microsoft stuff that you have done prior to coming to Linux. Microsoft wizards and these installer wizards and the idea of flow through has been defined by Microsoft, has crawled its way into everybody's little cranium, sat there, laid some eggs, and it blossomed into everybody disliking Anaconda because it wasn't linear.
That's not my exception with it. I do have, I disagree with you a little bit.
Have I made the rest of the internet mad as well, is my question.
I hope so. At Leo, that's the guy.
Still wrong?
Hear me out. I don't mind the hub and spoke thing. I don't mind going to each component and doing the parts that I need to do and coming back to the main one. However, I think there's some parts that when you get into are just not intuitive as to what I need to do.
Okay.
Especially when it comes to the discs, that part. If you just want to totally nuke and pave, it's not necessarily, it's just not intuitive, I don't think, to everyone.
Right. But you don't have to trash the entire hub and spoke model to be able to make a better disk implementer.
I think I agree with that, although people aren't accustomed to that style thing. So.
You said it, though, so now you agree with me, and I agree with you agreeing with me.
Yeah, no, okay, I'm good with that. You're probably right. You didn't need to throw out the baby with the bathwater.
I'm just saying,
to
it's
fix
the Microsoft
this.
bug. The Microsoft has convinced you the right way is the Microsoft way, and everybody is ignoring that fact.
But there were some things that they needed to address, I feel like. And
yes, I agree that.
Going to this linear type model, I think helps address those. It makes sure that you hit every part in a sequence, which... that's kind of good, maybe. I don't know. I feel like the other thing is you can do some of the linear bits as other things are happening in the background, too.
Mm-hmm. True.
Because like the Ubuntu installer does that. Like it'll start on your disk stuff and still ask you questions about other things. And so you can keep proceeding. And so you're not just watching the slideshow go on, right?
Yeah, okay.
So I mean,
shaving off 30 seconds on the installer. So,
well, I mean, it feels like an eternity when you're sitting there watching it. Let's be real.
No, you go make tea. Come on.
Until it asks you a question and you didn't answer it. Yeah.
What is this, 2002, where it takes forever to install on a hard disk drive?
Oh, well, there's one of the things we did improve in Ubuntu and some of the other flavors is, some of those install times down to like 2 minutes.
That's kind of insane.
That's crazy
is that
fast.
on a hard drive or is that on an SSD?
It's SD, but still,
okay.
That's like crazy fast, right?
Yeah. You tell me 2 minutes on a hard drive, and now I'm real impressed.
Less than 5.
How do you do that?
I'm going to say less than 5.
Yeah. See, the way that you do that is that you install onto the hard drive like a super duper base minimal system, and then just make it seem like the first boot is really slow, but it's actually just downloading and installing everything. See, I've got
like
ideas.
Gen 2?
Kinda. Yeah. I've got ideas. They're all up here, and I can help you avoid agreeing with Microsoft all day long.
There's ways.
And it's not by creating a new installer for Fedora. But
I mean, but I guess that's where we went. So now we got to make that better.
There are other ways, and you're right. You're right. I will only complain about this for the next 6 months tops. And then I'll be, by the next Fedora release, I will stop talking about it. I will
just keep upgrading, and then you won't have to worry about reinstalling.
See, true, and that's probably why I'm going to do it. I have to experience it once,
same,
to kind of figure that out, and then I will take one freebie, but that's about it. So speaking of trying it once. That's where all this was going. It turns out
we were going with it. Yeah.
This entire segment was not to enamor you with all of the cool things that we know about a software that we're not actually using. It's to tell you that we're going to make a couple of changes to the format of the show, and to do that, we're going to use Fedora and Ubuntu and their new release to kind of bring all of that to fruition. So, bad news first. I don't think we're going to see another history this season. And that's mostly because I got a lot of things going on in life, but not enough things that will prevent me from, sitting down and having a chat with Dan and then putting it all out for everybody. Not that dire, but things that are going to really consume a lot of my time. And the other thing that consumes a lot of my time is putting all of that history together.
Yeah, research for that.
Right. Yeah. And so I'm not saying never history ever again, but just for the rest of the season, and then we're going to reevaluate as we come up to season 6. When is the right time, or what is the right thing to talk about history-wise?
Yeah,
definitely. But I do want a fun project to do that won't be quite as time-consuming, and we've been talking about a couple of things, and one of those things is like I had mentioned, like, wouldn't it be cool if we really kind of deep dive into some of the new releases that are coming out? And I mean, when you know it, Fedora and Ubuntu just popped out, and so
there's some good things to go test.
Right. I mean, I want to see what that notification grouping looks like. I want to see what Fedora Cosmic is cooking up,
same.
and I want to see how they implemented the Microsoft way to install.
Yeah, I got to test it once. Yeah.
So we'll get there, and to do that, we're going to spend a lot of time on an Ubuntu and a Fedora, and then we're going to kind of peek in every now and then until the end of the season and see kind of how that's going.
I think we want to piggyback on some of the histories that we've already done too.
Very true.
Because we talked about snaps and we talked about Flatpaks, and I guess if you're thinking about those and where do you find those, you find snaps in Ubuntu and you find Flatpaks over in Fedora land,
which we've also done the histories on. So
we did do the histories on them. If
you haven't heard the history of Snap and you hadn't heard the history on Ubuntu or Fedora, it's time to go back and check those out. Sure, you're missing the what happened last week, but you're going to get the real beginnings, the real middles, and the real what it's like today. So one of the thing that that I know that we wanted to test out, I had mentioned, I don't know if it was on a live stream or if it was on an episode, but I am just very curious to really kind of explore that idea that I hear spouted all of the time. One of the biggest reasons that some people don't enjoy these containerized style packages is that not only are they massive in the first place, they tend to balloon over time. And I never kept track on Linux Mint to see how big my Flatpaks are, but they are not a huge part of my entire disk. So what I wanted to do, and what I'm going to force Dan to do with me, is keep track. So start on a new install, keep track. On Fedora, I want to focus on the Flatpaks. On Ubuntu, I want to focus on the snaps, and just kind of keep track of at least more than a month of what those packages do, when they update, how big they balloon, kind of just check in on it every few days, run your updates and see what's happened to the size of what's going on. And one of the interesting things about that is that you can't just look at a top-down view of your disk. You can't just look at your disk and be like, oh, it's bigger now, because you've been browsing on the internet. There's browser cache, and you've been downloading a picture, or you got a video, or you're doing video editing. You're using your machine. Yeah. And that also generates disk space.
Yeah, you got to dive into where these things are getting installed, and, where because it keeps a copy of the last version, you got to be looking in the right directories to find that stuff.
Exactly. And so one of the other things that I wanted to explore was kind of how to do that. How to separate what's the adage? Separate the wheat from the chaff?
Chaff?
Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So so how to give, and I'm sure there are tools out there to do that, and that would just make my life really, really easy. But I'm a bit of a nerd, so I will probably end up using baked in tooling to just kind of strip back and see what I can see.
Yeah, those core utils that we talked about.
Oh, that's right. That's right. What is it going to be like to have a GNU-less distro? No, not Alpine. It doesn't count.
Yeah. So
yeah, looking ahead, I think that's going to be something that
I agree.
I want to that I will explore in lieu of a history. I'm sorry, but they will be back. I am still absolutely 1,000% interested in doing histories. So that is something that we're definitely going to continue doing.
I guess on that note, if you got a history in mind that you want to see us come up with, maybe for next season, let us know.
Yeah, and we've done a lot of the big name distros.
We definitely have.
I think pretty much all of them. We may have missed one or two, but I think they're pretty much all out there.
We did at least the independent base, that a lot of things are spun from.
Yeah, so now's a really good time to suggest not just distros, but tools and technologies and other stuff. It does not even really, honestly, have to be directly Linux related. I'd like it if it was Linux adjacent at least, but honestly, I'm a bit of a history nerd, man. I'll do. I feel like I could do any kind of history at this point.
Well, I feel like anything computing related, at least. I mean, try to get it within that box, I suppose.
Well, I won't give you the history of the wheat and the chaff, but I will give you the history of something technologically related. So yeah, there you go. We'll put it in that box. If it's technologically related, I'd like to hear what you'd like to hear. And that would just give me the excuse to go down the Wikipedia rabbit hole and then spend about 12 hours in archive.org.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
As if I need an excuse, but I'll use it as an excuse. It'll be fine.
All right, so that brings us to what we're planning for the next times. But we'll continue to give you a few thoughts and have some other topic shows in between a couple times here too. So, but in between shows, you can catch us on Twitter, Mastodon, Telegram, Matrix, Discord, Blue Sky, Lemmy. I don't know, you name it, we're there.
We ran out of things on the list, but we're in so many places that and we're so lazy to update the list that they're just not there, and so we have to wing it all the time.
Yeah, and I think we try to hit a
Pixel
different one
fan.
every time. But, talk to us, give us the feedback, give us the ideas that you're coming up with, and let us know what you think. All the links in the show notes are on linuxuserspace.show. So, Leo, where can we find you?
You can always find me at leochavez at mastodon.social and at leochavez.org on the old blue sky.
You're going to yell at me, but that's fine. You can find me at kc2bz at mastodon.social and Monetary Abyss at bluesky.app. Or whatever that is.
Okay.
Sorry.
I didn't even have to check in with you. You checked in with me on that.
did.
Wow, okay. You're just kind of preempting me there. I like that. You knew what was coming. You knew it.
I knew you were going to call me out. Yep. I haven't done anything with my DNS. Sorry. Anyway, you can always catch the show at Linux User Space at all the places, including Mastodon and Blue Sky. We're there. So, anyway, come back in a couple of weeks for another episode of Linux User Space. Bye, y'all.
Bye. Actually, did just buy some new Wi-Fi access points. I've been buying a lot of tech. I got
I'm plugged right in, so that's not the problem. It's the
look at that guy.
Actual
there we go.
internet thing. Oh, okay.
This is remember I was talking about how I hated the capture card that I had because I bought a cheap Chinese one and everything was tinted yellow. Well, this is the good one apparently. So when we play games on stream and stuff, it'll be nicer. And if we
ever get to that.
Yeah. The actual plan is to, when I have free time and I'm playing games, I just do what I'm already doing, but on stream. So anyway, so that'll help with that. If I ever actually do what I say I'm going to do and make all that happen, then yeah, that'll be what that's for.